Every time our athletes walk into this weight room, they're going to be pushed to the max.
Let's go! Let's go!
The barbell hasn't changed in over 100 years. I can take a 25-pound plate and we'll go out on the turf and I'll have you hating life. We talk about straining your gut, pushing past that comfort level. I want a lot of energy. What better breeding ground is there for being a success in life than the weight room?
Hey guys, welcome back to Iron Game Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Rob McKeefery, and this is episode number 286. I want to thank you guys for listening each week. Really appreciate those of you that like, share, comment. Just helps us continue to highlight the great people that we have in our profession. Also want to thank our sponsors, and specifically Woodway, for bringing this episode to you for free. I only partner with companies that I believe in, both the people and the product, and Woodway has been a treadmill that I've put in every weight room that I've ever had. And think the world of. So if you're in the market, reach out to them. If not, just let them know how much you appreciate them being a part of the show the next time you see them at a clinic or something. This week I'm joined by a friend of mine, Monte Sparkman. He's the head strength coach at Richland High School in Texas. The guy that is also a former NAIA stellar all-star athlete like myself. See, we can lie because nobody actually watched us play, right?
That's right. Use that term very loosely.
But just a great guy. I've gotten to know a lot better in the last couple of years and just think the world of. So thanks for coming on the show, man.
Absolutely, Coach. Very honored to be on here. I've been watching your podcast for a while now, and the roster that you've amassed of guests. I'm just very humbled to be included in that. So thanks so much.
No, awesome, man. Well, let's dig into a little bit. Your experiences. I mean, you've been around. You've been in this field for a long time. You're an athlete yourself. Which experience, be it athletic, be it coaching wise, has best kind of prepared you for where you're currently at?
Man, that's a great question, Coach. I think honestly, the area or the spot that I've been in that's really given me the tool set is when I was a middle school coach at Northridge Middle School. Where I really had to figure out who I was, the direction and style of training that I wanted to utilize. And then how was I going to do it? Because when you're talking about 12, 13, 14-year-old athletes and with a very limited, and by limited, I mean no budget,
right?
That's when you find out who you are. That's when you find out the kind of coach you are. That's when you find out really what you're made of. I've been – I'll even go as far to say fortunate that I haven't been at places that have all the bells and whistles, because when you have all the tools – it's easy.
Right.
When you've got every piece of equipment, when you've got technology, when you've got those things at your fingertips, you just grab them and use them. But I think where you find out what kind of coach you are is when you don't have those things, and where you kind of have to manufacture, on a budget or without a budget, and that's when you find out where you are. So I would say my time at the middle school level, really shaped me and gave me a great tool set moving forward from there, for sure.
Yeah, I would echo that completely. I mean, being at South Florida in the very early years and having a 2,000 square foot weight room and two platforms and 9 straight lifting groups to get the football team through made me a much better coach. Much more resourceful and looking at things not just as a blessing to have all that stuff. I think that's a positive thing when you do get the ability to have, your setup now is incredible. But
yeah, it's definitely taking a couple steps forward. We have a great room now, and I was joking with somebody the other day talking about how I feel that Home Depot should be my sponsor, because that's whenever you do something, whenever you got to create something. I was looking for some straps the other day, and boom, you go to Home Depot and you find a way to work. And so something else I have to say is we're
that may be the title of the episode right there. I like that.
Sponsored by Home Depot. There you go.
Well, You know, when you're working with that age athlete, especially coming from the athletic background that you come from and whatnot, I mean, you're going to make some mistakes along the way. What's one of the biggest mistakes you've made as a strength coach, and how you learned from it?
Yeah, man. You know, especially with my powerlifting background, you know, that number takes a whole new meaning. And I think early on, and even still now, it's a struggle to be defined and to chase and to try to put on a pedestal those numbers, those indicator numbers within the lifts. And I think it's difficult as a strength coach, because you want to identify or you want to judge your program by how many athletes you have lifting XYZ.
Right.
And as you know, athletic performance is so much more than a number on a bar. And so it's a constant struggle to know when to push, but then to also know when to check your ego and when to pull back, you know, and that's something that I have to constantly be aware of when I'm training our athletes, our boys and girls.
Yeah, agreed. I think that doesn't change as you go up, you know, at any level, but absolutely paramount with your youth athletes for sure.
Yeah, and so the idea is that you try to take a minimalistic approach. You know, you try to find, you know, what's the minimal dosage I can have to get the maximal amount of results. You know, and that's a challenge, but that's the fun part. Right. You know, is figuring that out. I think the second area where I make mistakes all the time is tending to take things too personal.
Yeah.
For example, when an athlete's late, when an athlete misses, when a coach has a concern about maybe something you're doing or the direction you want to go. You know, I'm a very passionate guy. I'm also a very emotional guy, which I think is great, but I think it can be a detriment sometimes. And so those are two big things that I'm constantly trying to rein in and to make sure that I keep in check.
Yeah. Well, I think something I talk about a lot on the show is confusing passion with emotion, you know, and having an emotional response to something when you're just trying to demonstrate how passionate you are. And I think we all fight with that. Well, as we've alluded to a little bit, I mean, you're a very accomplished lifter yourself, and you know, one of the things that I've always respected about you is exactly what you said, that although you're very accomplished as a power lifter, you're not one of these guys that can you know, squat the house, but everywhere else is walking around with a walker or you know, is not really concerned with athletic movement or diet or anything along those lines. And you, I mean, you're a guy that has stayed well-rounded, both in your athletic career, but also then turned around and translated all of what is good about powerlifting to the athletic environment.
Yeah, you know, that's something, and our head football coach, Jed Cates, will tell you that when I stepped into this role, that was his concern. That's where he was going. He thought that it was going to be all bench, squat, deadlift, you know, and a powerlifting emphasis, and it couldn't be farther from the truth, Coach. You know, we have a constant emphasis on proper movement mechanics, energy system development, you know, injury prevention, just like everybody. You know, yes, I'm a power lifter. That's my background. That's my passion. But that's not how you train athletes. At least that's my belief. That's not how you train athletes. You know, can we take elements from that? Sure we can. Sure we can. Is it a great tool set? Absolutely. You know, strength to me is the first thing that we're going to develop, because I believe that all those other biomechanical abilities stem from that. But that's not who we are. That's not what our program is about. You know, something else I've told him all the time is that on Friday nights, and I'm using football right now, but it can be applied to anything.
Right.
They're not rolling a bench press out there.
Right.
There's not a squat rack on a 50-yard line, to determine the outcome of the game, and so it's one piece to the puzzle, and it didn't take me very long to convince him that that's not the direction our program was going, and he's been great. He's been one of those guys that's allowed me to kind of do this thing and do it in a manner that I feel is best, and really enjoy that about him. But yeah, no, powerlifting is something that I'll always be a part of, and that's a part of me. But it's definitely not how I define our athletic development programs.
Yeah, I think strength and conditioning is so much like one of the things I love about MMA is that it's all these disciplines blended into competition, right? Your Muay Thai, your Jiu-Jitsu, your striking, your wrestling, and these fighters now, if you don't have a Jiu-Jitsu coach or a striking coach or a Muay Thai coach, you're going to be in trouble, and so taking the good from all these disciplines and applying it, I think that's our job these days.
Yeah. What you just said there, Coach, really sums up kind of my philosophy with regards to this. It's my job as a coach to have the biggest tool belt, the biggest toolbox that I can. Because you never know when you're not going to have this or when you're going to have that or when an injury might cause you to not be able to do something. If all you know is back squat, box squat, what happens when you have that athlete that comes in with a back issue,
right? And
now you can't load them vertically. Well, you better have some other options, or you're not going to be able to maximize that athlete's potential. And so it's our job as coaches to be as diverse, as possible. Now you have to know. You have to know where your roots are.
Oh, yeah.
And I think you have to have an identity. But I think within that, you have to be able to draw from different disciplines as a methodology and philosophies to give you the best experience for your athletes that you can do.
Yeah, you got to be. I agree with that. I mean, you have to be an expert in something. If you're going to stand down, if you're going to get the head job somewhere, you better be an expert in something, and then be able to know where to get information elsewhere. To be able to contribute to your program. And one of those things that you've done is that you've blended, your powerlifting roots with, bringing a conjugate type of method to high school environment. Talk a little bit about how you've implemented that successfully at a high school setting.
Well, so the conjugate method is something that really makes a lot of sense to me, because athletic development is not sectioned and blocked in specific windows.
Right.
And so you have to be able to be training all aspects of that force velocity curve year round, because as you know, if you go from a GPP phase into a strength phase, into a hypertrophy phase, into a power phase, well, by the time you've got to there, well, then you've lost all the other qualities that you've been developing. And so for me, the conjugate system makes sense because you're training those in concert constantly. And so that paired with the way that we integrate that into the tier system has really, really been good for athletes, and I feel has really allowed us to create a system that maximizes their performance.
Yeah, I believe that 100%. I think it's strength and power is on a continuum, speed's on a continuum. I think if you're doing one at the detriment of another, you're just setting your athlete up for failure, and wholeheartedly agree with you on that. Being in the setting that you're in, I mean, it's not uncommon for you to have an athlete walk in that's never even walked into a weight room before. Not even seen a weight room before.
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about how you've implemented kind of a block zero type of program and how you've developed and progressed your athletes through a system.
Sure. So all of our freshman athletes go through what we call our Block Zero program. And anytime we get a new athlete, we that's where we start them, is our Block Zero program. And it truly is a movement before muscle philosophy. And you've heard the term slow cook them. And that's exactly what we try to do. You know, I want them to be effective movers before we give them any type of load. The concept of you don't want to load dysfunction.
Right.
And so the idea is we're going to teach that freshman or that new incoming athlete how to hinge, how to squat, how to brace, how to do a push-up, how to manipulate their body weight before we do any type of resistive type training. And really the way that they progress that is completely on them. You know, the ideal time frame is about 4 to 6 weeks, but it's been shorter, and it's been a year for some of them.
Right.
And but they're driving that process. And so, you know, we want to create, and I think we have created a progressive, systematic system to progress them through those movements into a less intensive resistive exercise, and then up to a more resistive intensive exercise. You know, you're talking like from a body weight squat all the way into a front squat, you know, where it be isometric, whether it be goblet, whether it be counterbalance.
Right.
You know, something we do with our freshman athletes is, and I'm talking from a football standpoint, is their freshman year, all they do is front squat. You know, we're not Olympic based, but we do use elements from that discipline. And so, you know, my job with our incoming athletes, with our freshmen, is to teach them, and I'm talking clean here,
Sure,
how to pull from the floor and then how to front squat. And so if they get really good at that their entire freshman year, then that summer program, that's when we introduce our clean progression. And it makes it so much easier for them to pick up, because they're comfortable pulling and they're comfortable in that rack position, you know. And I think that's where some coaches miss the boat, is they want to jump right into it. Well, we got to clean. Let's max them. Well, I don't want the strongest 14-year-old, or I don't want the most explosive 14-year-old. I want that athlete to peak their senior year in their sport or time frame, or whatever that looks like. That's when I want them to be at their max. It's not incoming. And so I think checking our ego and then being able to take a step back and to embrace the process, you know, so to speak.
Right.
That's pay dividend for those athletes down the road.
I think you bring up a good point there. You know, be it either the athlete's ego, or a lot of times it's the parent's ego. You know,
yeah.
How do you address that when you got either the parent or the athlete that's like, oh, why am I doing body weight stuff as a freshman? I know how to do a push up. I know how to do a clean, or whatever it may be. How do you put them in the right mindset to be able to be moldable?
Coach, I'll be completely honest with you. Our interaction with parents has been phenomenal. There really hasn't been much backlash or any issue. When I was down at the middle school level, we actually had an athlete assessment. And so we had a series of movements and a series of isometric movements, and we tested them at the beginning, middle, and end. And that way they had a hard copy. And that way, if there ever was any discrepancy of, hey, why isn't my kid in this group? Why isn't my kid in that group?
Right.
Mom, dad, administrator, sport coach, whoever, this is where this athlete is. And so it's in concrete. There is no, well, this is what I think and this is what you think. You know, the other piece to that I feel really gives me a firm foundation to stand on is the different certifications, that I have as a coach. Now, does that mean I'm a great coach? No. But what that does is that separates you from that sport coach. It separates you from that parent, that you can at least say, hey, here's the knowledge base that I have.
Right.
This allows me to make these determinations. And so, and that's kind of a hot topic right now, I think, with regards to, certifications and which one is right and which one's wrong, or which, do you need to have, I think that, you have to get those. Do they make you coach XYZ? No, but it gives you ammo. It legitimizes your knowledge base, so that when those conversations come up, you can be able to defend yourself appropriately.
Yeah, agreed.
So.
Yeah, there's a lot to dig in with that.
We could go down a couple rabbit holes there for sure.
Yeah, well, I think it's, the legitimacy of the profession and finding ways to continue to grow it at the high school level, I think should be paramount to every strength coach, not just the ones that are working in NFL or college, or the ones that are working in high school. It's something that affects our entire profession.
Without a doubt, I strongly feel like our best coaches, our most qualified coaches, should be with our youngest athletes.
Well, that's what it is in most every other
right. Yeah, exactly.
country. It's the way that it is, and it's where you can affect the most change. If you have it's a foundation. It's like any house, right? If it's a solid foundation, then lots of injuries don't happen. Lots of development can, all the benefits of performance. But more importantly, I think, if anything, it gives you a profession, a young profession, jobs. It gives you a place to cut your teeth if you're young. It gives you a place to land if you're older, if you don't want to chase the logo around. It gives you lots of benefits to the profession, not just what it does for the athletes, which is what's most important.
It doesn't make sense that we require our teachers to be certified. It doesn't make sense that we require that, but no one's getting hurt taking an English test.
Yeah, that's right.
And they're
required to have an English certification, right?
Yeah, and so we're in an environment that's the most dangerous room in the school.
Right.
And so why would you not want somebody who has a knowledge base that's appropriate for that? It just doesn't make sense. It would scare me to death if my kids ever end up in a school and they're in athletics and they've got somebody who doesn't know what they're doing.
Right.
It's so yeah, that I'm about to get on a soapbox here, but that just doesn't make sense. It doesn't.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I always use the lifeguard analogy, where you wouldn't let them go without a lifeguard, right? But I think something else that you dug in there that I want to go into a little bit deeper is the fact that I think what the NHSSCA has done a great job of, I think what the coaches that are at the high school level like yourself have done a phenomenal job of, is you're putting a curriculum to this progression of development, and creating some KPIs and some achievements that have to be reached, like front squatting X number of weight or per body weight or something along those lines. And I think what that's doing is it's legitimizing the profession, but it's also it's providing some academic. It's kind of you're playing their game. You're playing the administrator's game. You're playing parents. That they can relate to that being a lesson plan as opposed to a training session.
You have to understand that for a long time, strength training at the high school level was done by either the coach who worked out or someone who just had an interest and wanted to take it. And a lot of those guys they either train their athletes how they train. So if they're a bodybuilder, Olympic lifter, powerlifter, whatever, that's how they trained them.
Right.
And then that was acceptable. And so you have to break the mindset. And I think that our motto of the NHSSCA should be stopping out ignorance, because people don't know what they don't know. And so it's our job, like you said, to meet them where they are and give a certain standardization to training programs and progressions that are safe and effective for high school athletes.
Right.
Where I am in Texas, I feel like we're starting to get ahead of the curve, but we still have a long way to go. The school district that I'm in, we have 3 high schools. All 3 schools have a qualified strength coach, but the district as a whole doesn't recognize us as a strength coach position. We're all sport coaches, or we're all teachers. And so we still have a long way to go. But what you said about formalizing that and doing away or dispelling the quote unquote meathead persona still has to happen, so that we can get that to be uniform across not just Texas, but all states. And that's why I jumped aboard with our organization, and I feel like we're making great strides in that. But by no means are we we still have a long way to go.
Right. Yeah, well, my soapbox is always, be it the NHSSCA, the NSCA, the CSCCA, whatever organization you want to throw in there.
Right.
They're all member-ran organizations.
Right.
They're only as good as their members. And we're so caught up sometimes in focusing on the tough job that we have, one of the toughest jobs there is. But we have to be able to find the time and recognize that we're still in the first 100 years of this profession.
Yeah.
And all of us have the ability to help shape what this could look like 500 years from now, 300 years.
No, and that's the exciting part, especially with our organization being new. Where are we going to be in 20 years? Where are we going to be in 30 years? And to look back and say that we've been able to impact that positively, man, that's exciting. That's exciting.
I agree 100%. Well, man, we end the show here with some resources. Give us the best piece of coaching advice you ever received.
Oh, all training programs in nature are incomplete. And so I feel like sometimes we want to shove as many items in that basket that we can without realizing that at some point that water is going to pour out of the basket.
Right.
And so each phase of the year has different needs, and we have to understand that, but also understand that you're not going to hit every component that you need to hit. So you better be able to prioritize. And then the second piece of that is keep it simple.
Yeah.
Keep it simple. We tend, and I'm saying me too, I'm definitely not immune to this. We tend to throw in the fancy stuff. We tend to want to get exotic, when in reality, the more basic, the more simple the program, the more effective I believe it's going to be. If you walk in our weight room, we don't have a lot of bells and whistles. We don't have a lot of machines. We don't have a lot of those things that other programs have. But where we have success is we have a simple program with clearly defined expectations, and then we execute that plan effectively. I tell people sometimes too, it's not the car, it's how you drive it.
Right.
And so that to me has really helped me kind of stay grounded when I go to create programs, when I go to ask for things. Number one, do we need it? Is it necessary? And then, or is it fluff, or is it something that I want just because it's cool, or because somebody else has it? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I think it was something that one of my, it was actually Coach Levitt at South Florida was like, if we're going to spend some money on something, how's it going to help us win?
Yeah, no, for sure. So we train anywhere from 80 to 100 athletes at one time. So buying one piece of something really doesn't do me a whole lot of good.
No.
So let's take that money and put it elsewhere, where we can buy multiple things,
right,
to get the most bang for our buck.
Agreed. 100%. Give us a book, app, and website recommendation.
Oh man, okay. So these have probably been said before, but right now, the book that has really been driving me is James Kerr's Legacy.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've read it. It's been really, really good. It's probably up on the shelf somewhere. But I've always been intrigued by the Polynesian culture, and I've always been intrigued by that lifestyle, and him being able to shed some light on that through the All Blacks has been really, really good. I've shared pieces of it with our athletes, and will continue to do so, just because I think it's a tremendous book.
Right.
Website, man. Tim Conto stole this, but I got to go with EliteFTS.com. That's been my go-to for probably 15 years, going on 20 years. It's a website that I check 3 or 4 times a day.
Right.
Just because I think there's a tremendous amount of information and a diverse amount of information out there that is not just powerlifting based, or it's not just strength based. They talk about a lot of different topics on that website, and I just feel as it being a one-stop shop, you can't go wrong with going there. An app. So with 2 little girls, and as you know, with kids, you have to have something to kind of organize your time. You have to have a place to put appointments and things. And my wife is on me all the time about this app called the Cozy app. COZI. Cozy app. And so that's an app that allows us to schedule, to communicate. You can make shopping lists, you can make dinner lists. It's just a place that centralizes all of our appointments and schedules, and something that's been good for us. So
I'm have to look that one up. I'm trying to think of the one.
That's different.
But we use. I'm looking for the one we use. Picnic.
Okay.
Similar type thing, but I'm gonna look into Cozy as well.
Yeah, Cozy. Yeah.
That's awesome. Hey, I tell you one thing. It's like I always say on the show: if your home team's not right, it doesn't matter what team you work for, they won't be right. So you got to make sure your home's first.
Without a doubt, and that's definitely something that I'm continuing to work on.
Yeah, we all are, man. We all are.
It's a work in progress.
Well, man, like I said at the beginning, I've had tons of respect for you about the way that you become an expert in your discipline, but then you turn around and you're constantly challenging yourself and pulling from multiple disciplines to create a well-rounded program for your athletes. And just an all-time good guy in the profession that's willing to do whatever it takes to help people out, including hosting one of our play labs on June 8th. You're going to be hosting one.
Yeah, man, super excited about that. That's got some heavy hitters coming, man. That's going to be big.
It's going to be an awesome group. So if you guys are listening to this, you haven't registered for June 8th down in Texas, if you're in that area, it'd be really, really smart to attend that. But just appreciate you, man, about how you go about your business and the way that you've opened your doors and helped people and continue to do so. So thanks for coming on the show.
Awesome, Coach. Thanks so much for having me. Thanks so much.
That's it for this episode of Iron Game Chalk Talk. Thanks to this week's guest as well as our sponsors for bringing this episode to you for free. Make sure to check out ronmckeefery.com, where you can join our mailing list, find the show notes, including all the links and resources mentioned, and information about Coach McKeefery's other products. While you are there, please join Coach McKeefery in the comments section thanking our guest for sharing. If you haven't subscribed to Iron Game Chalk Talk on YouTube or iTunes yet, make sure to do so. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome. Coach McKeefery can be found on Twitter at @RMcKeefery, on Facebook and YouTube at /Ron.McKeefery. That's it for this week. Be sure to check back next week for another great episode of Iron Game Chalk Talk.